I'm Robin Gagnon.
And I'm Eric Gagnon, and we sell restaurants. We started the nation's largest restaurant brokerage firm. We Sell Restaurant over a decade ago. You can find us online at WeSellRestaurants.com.
Catch us live once a week on the radio with authoritative guests who are taking on the subjects the restaurant industry is talking about. Miss us on the air? That's all right. Go to the iTunes store and search We Sell Restaurants to download our podcast. If you're on social media, tweet your questions to our Twitter handle, Sell Restaurants, or post on our Facebook page at facebook.com/We Sell Restaurants. We will follow up with you on our social media channels.
Our goal is to satisfy your appetite for acquisition, feed the need for restaurant reality, and serve up a recipe for business success. We go out into the restaurant industry to assemble top authorities on topics trending in the fast-paced world, filled with both risk and success, to share the inside scoop.
We are joined by two restaurant experts today who are going to help us take on the topic of bar and restaurant beverage programs. The all-important beverage component of restaurant sales can deliver the most profit and most opportunity for operators, so we will get advice from the best.
Joining us today is Brett Thorne. Award-winning columnist Brett Thorne is senior food editor of Nation's Restaurant News, a website and biweekly trade magazine for the food service industry, with responsibility for spotting and reporting on culinary trends across the country. From 2006 to 2008, he also wrote the Kitchen Dish column for the New York Sun, covering restaurant openings and chefs' careers moves. He joined Nation's Restaurant News in 1999 after spending about 5 years in Thailand, where he wrote articles about business, banking, and finance, as well as restaurant reviews and food columns for Managers magazine and Asia Times newspaper. A magna cum laude graduate of Tufts University in Medford, Massachusetts, with a bachelor's degree in history and a member of the Phi Beta Kappa. Mr. Thorne also studied traditional French cooking at Le Cordon Bleu École de Cuisine in Paris. His multi-column in Nation's Restaurant News won the 2006 Jesse H. Neal National Business Journalism Award for Best Staff Written Editorial or Opinion Column. He now lives in Brooklyn, New York. Welcome to the show, Brett.
Thank you.
We are also very fortunate to be joined by the Chief Executive Officer of Beventel, Dan Smith. Beventel is the leader in inventory management and cost savings for bars. The name Beventel may be familiar to our listeners as the brand featured on Spike TV's hit series, Bar Rescue. Dan has extensive hands-on experience with the food and beverage industry while completing his undergraduate studies at Denison University and his MBA at Kellogg School at Northwestern University. Smith worked in casual restaurants, bars, nightclubs, and fine dining. That experience serves him well in his present position. Dan, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, Brett, let's start, and maybe you can lead off by offering your perspective on the essentials of a good beverage program. Tell us, what is the magic formula that bar and restaurant owners need to be aware of to cover the basics for a beverage program to be successful?
Well, of course, it depends on who your audience is, but you need to have a varied beer selection. You need to have a solid wine program, especially wines by the glass, including a variety of traditional popular varietals. Your Cabernet Sauvignons and your Chardonnays, as well as some of the trendier varietals like Moscato and Malbec. You need a balanced beverage program with balanced hard liquor program with those trendy, flavorful vodkas that are popular, as well as good brown spirits, and a cocktail program that is diverse enough for customers to appreciate it, but not so complex that your staff can't handle it. And that's something that you kind of have to figure out as you understand your staff.
Wow, that's very good information. I think we may have to extend the show by about 9 more hours to go just through all these. But Dan, what is your thoughts on the essential good beverage program from your perspective and what you see in the field?
I agree with exactly what he just said, but as well, it starts with your staff. I think you have to have a well-trained staff. You've got to communicate with them exactly what you're trying to do. I think you've seen a real trend over the last few years into what they call mixology, which is making quality drinks the right way for guests. And I think that comes with measured pours. I think it comes with appropriate recipes, and really having some knowledge about spirits that you can explain to the guests. So I think you have to really train and communicate with your staff what you're attempting to present, And that goes a long way with the guests when they come to the door, because they want to know, they want to be educated.
Dan, now your company actually specializes in helping to reduce loss or shrinkage in the industry. So both of our experts just talked about the basics of a good program, and it's a well-known fact that the potential for profit from beverage programs also comes with that opportunity for losses. Can you give us some idea what's the typical loss that the average restaurant or bar may experience?
Unfortunately, as much as 20 to 25% variance.
Wow.
So it is a big deal, and a lot of it is because management staff don't have the right tools. So you have to provide them with the right beverage management tools. In our case, we come in and help by weighing each of the bottles and by then measuring and seeing exactly in the POS system how much was sold versus how much was poured. And by going and do that, we can see where variances are with liquors, if there's been overpours, if there's unfortunately been giveaways or thefts or whatever, and then we can work with the staff to help them understand why it's important to pour correctly and make sure that every dollar makes it into the cash register.
Wow, that's some good advice, and that's one word that you just said that is actually keeps coming back into our guests and our show is education. Both of you mentioned that already early on in the show. That's also critical. I think that your staff is part of this program. And Brett, you mentioned so many things a minute ago about I'm thinking I've got a 2,000 square foot restaurant and I got a bar that's about 8 seats and 30 foot of wall space. But with everything you've said, I think I need about 3,000 square foot bar just to carry everything you said. Can you elaborate a little bit about a lot of folks are trying to shrink inventory, as we know it costs money, sits there. Talk a bit more specific, drive it down maybe at a level to see what exactly, more specifically, would you carry in the typical small bar in an average casual restaurant?
Well, it certainly depends on who your customers are, but you need ideally, if you have a tap, then you should have a variety of different beers on tap. You need your mainstream lagers, but you also need something a little bit more exotic, maybe an India Pale Ale if your customers are adventurous, a brown ale, certainly some local craft beers. And then really there is so much opportunity for customers to enjoy wines by the glass that I think you need to commit to having 6 or 8 wines by the glass, 3 or 4 reds, 3 or 4 whites. And then when it comes to spirits, although the mixologists continue to be very excited about whiskey and increasingly about gin, the country is still, when it comes to hard alcohol, a country of vodka drinkers, and especially the young enthusiastic drinking crowd likes some of the vodka flavors that might be counterintuitive to restaurant managers. The last time I heard, whipped cream flavored vodka was the 3rd fastest growing vodka flavor. I don't remember what number 2 is, but number 1 is raspberry. And you have to pay attention to both the aficionados and the people who want to have kind of fun drinks.
That's really great information. Actually, craft beers is really top of mind right now because a lot of folks are introducing the craft beer concept, and we're really seeing this explode in the industry. Dan, does that bring to mind any differences in how you actually manage inventory or anything that you would change in your approach if you have more of a craft beer concept than traditional types of beers on hand?
Oh, absolutely. That's the hottest trend out there is the proliferation of the craft beer brands. There's an estimated 1,000 new brands are coming into place over the next 12 months. So it is exploding right now. In our experience with clients out there, we see them expanding from 6 to 10 draft lines up to 40 to 60, including some places right now having over 100 different draft lines out there, and a much wiser, informed consumer that understands what they're looking for from beer and understands beer pairings with food as well. So understanding and putting a well thought through draft program, as Brett mentioned, with different flavors, different tastes, as well as a nice representation of local brands, I think, which is critical because I think there's, again, a real push towards supporting local brands, but putting that menu together. And then, again, I said this before, but making sure your staff is trained and understands and has a comprehensive draft beer program, that they understand how to pour beer, how to take care of the beer correctly, that the beer is being served at temperature. We also provide a product called Beverage, and that product actually monitors the beer flow through the line, so you can make sure the beer is being poured correctly, that you're not having beer losses, and it's also managing temperature and allows you to monitor and manage the fact that the draft lines are being cleaned thoroughly and correctly and on a frequent basis, which is also critical to the taste and quality of the beer.
So, go ahead. I think Eric has a great question.
That's good information, and I'd like to ask you. I mean, you talk about staff, how critical it is, and I believe that. And over the years, we obviously go out and all across the country and across the world and eat and dine, and I am one to try everything, especially on the alcohol side. Now I'm very eager to try something. I've seen a small uptick in better service or better education from the wait staff. Do you guys see a lot more education out there? Because it's not, I don't see it driven to the customer level yet. And if you see, what are some of the things you're seeing versus the rep from the liquor company comes and here's our whipped cream vodka, tastes like whipped cream, sell it. Can you elaborate a little bit what you see out there? And we expect better service, better sales technique from the sales staff in the future. Brett, you care to give us a shot at that?
Sure. I mean, I think what a lot of bar and restaurant managers are coming to understand is that if you want to sell a premium ingredient, you have to tell your guests why they should be spending extra money on that, and you want to tell the story of the ingredient. This is a local craft beer. The brewery's owned by these two guys. They used to take care of sick animals, whatever the story is, and that gets the customers to buy in more and to appreciate what you're selling them more. And the only way you can do that effectively is to educate your staff. And I think restaurateurs and bar managers are coming to understand that. And I think that's one reason we're seeing better service, because better service results in better sales.
I think that is a really great call out, and marketing is a passion of mine. I noticed an article in Nation's Restaurant News recently saying that millennials, those born from 1980 to the 2000s, have dining behavior that is, quote, hard to define. So it makes it more difficult to attract those customers and also market to them. So that discussion that you just had, tell the story of the ingredient, is that one way that you would reach this more difficult to reach audience, and how else do you translate trying to market to a bar and restaurant program to the millennials?
I think telling the story is definitely a great way to do it. I think every time a generation comes of age, the older crowd doesn't understand them. I mean, that was true of the baby boomers when they were being rebellious hippies. I'm in Generation X, which still is called Generation X because the baby boomers tried to define us and didn't understand us. So I don't know that we should overthink the fact that nobody understands 23-year-olds. They don't really understand themselves either. But one thing that's different about them is that they're very much plugged into their smartphones, and if you can get through to them through social media anyway, you can sort of push out what you're doing to their digital devices so that they can really be plugged into what's happening. That's a very common way for them to be engaged with bars and restaurants that they like.
So technology plays a role both on the control side, which is something Dan just talked about, and
Right.
that same technology platform also plays a huge role on the marketing side.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Dan, do you see like this knowledge, like Brett talked about, about the story of the brewery, the story of the product itself? Do you see the restaurateurs and the management of restaurants seeking out directly to breweries or to distributors? Where do they go to get that education to their staff typically?
That's interesting. That's an interesting question. It's challenging. Yes, I mean they are going to the brewery and brewery staffs to try and get some of that assistance, but it's not easy because typically, brewery staff is going to be expert in their flavors, their brands. They may not want to expand upon other brands or flavors out there. I think one great place to go to is a lot of the distributors are doing beer fairs, beer festivals for their clients where you can go in and taste a variety of different craft beers as well as domestics that are represented there. And they have their brewers there. They have the salespeople that you can go in and really talk about the product and get some education, get materials that you can then come back and train your staff. And or as well, for instance, our company, when we're hired and we work with our clients, we're providing those kinds of training meetings and so forth to help them make the right decisions for their menus.
So if you had to sum up one recommendation that would be the first on your list, what recommendation would you have for bar owners to try to increase their profits behind the bar? Because we deal with sellers as restaurant brokers, and we're always looking at the numbers, and those savvy operators are looking at the numbers, and they want to know, how do I bring more profit to the bottom line?
So you said one word. You want me to give you one word?
No, just one just your number one recommendation, not one word. Because I think your word would be your company name.
Yeah, I would say, again, where I started, you've got to educate and train and position your staff to be salespeople, to be knowledgeable salespeople, and to be engaging, attentive salespeople. And that way, I think that they can really work with the customer, get them what they're looking for, get them excited about new products, get them to try different things, give them a better understanding of all the different wines and beers and spirits that Brett was referring to earlier, and make them a part of the process. And when that happens, there's a connection there, and I think people come back to that time and time again, and that helps the cash register.
Good. That's a good answer. Brett, I know you said we talk a lot about craft beer, and they're categorized as the new wine almost in a lot of restaurants. But in this year, in 2013, have you seen other trends in the beverage world that you see emerging, or that you see they're going to be tracking pretty hot for the rest of the year in early 2014?
Well, Dan mentioned mixology, and that's certainly something that's spreading from the larger cities elsewhere. And also, not just craft beers, but craft spirits. There are a lot of local distilleries that usually start making a vodka or a gin, and then they expand to spirits that require more aging. But there's a lot of sort of small do-it-yourself companies setting up, making unique spirits. I think that's.
So we're talking like micro distilleries type, maybe?
Exactly.
Type of word? I mean, that's a new word that we just invented here today, guys.
In fact, you didn't invent it. That's what they're calling themselves.
Oh.
And
Okay.
most states now produce some kind of whiskey, and that used to be really pretty much limited to Kentucky and Tennessee, and we're really seeing a lot, especially in the West. Although I live in New York City, and we also have a lot of micro distilleries making bourbon and gin and vodka, and certainly rye. Rye is the trendy whiskey of the moment.
Dan, what about you? Do you see any particular trends we haven't talked about yet in the industry for this year and into next year?
No, I think Brett summarized it. I think you see a lot of small batch distilling, especially bourbons and ryes seem to be on the increase out there. Clearly, tequila went through a major resurgence, and it continues to expand out there. But there seems to be a real focus when you ask the question about millennials. It seems like millennials like that are very, very focused on quality and quality ingredients at a good price, and they like to focus on these, interesting, unique local craft brands that are popping up that have different taste profile, different positioning in the marketplace, and they're interesting. They're unique, and so there seems to be a lot of growth in that area.
I would add one other thing that I think bears looking at. When it comes to wine, millennials are really showing that they have a pronounced sweet tooth. They're drinking a lot of Moscato and some other wines that have more residual sugars than older customers enjoying their wines, and that's certainly worth looking at and exploring.
Oh, that's really.
I think I'm going to get along really well with the millennials.
Yeah, the sweet things are delicious.
Yes, absolutely.
There sure are. And based on that, what can you guys do briefly here? What kind of recommendation for improving drink sales? We see that, I've seen a restaurant making $1 million in sales with no alcohol, and they would lose money. I mean, alcohol is such a profit maker. What quick recommendation would you say to make more profit on your drink programs would you give? Dan?
Again, is to position a program towards the customer that you're pursuing, educate your staff, and have them sell the higher quality program. Have them upsell, quality drinks, quality blended drinks, and so forth that are new to a customer.
So we've got to stop training people in the industry to be order takers and uplift their skill set to be sales individuals that have information about the product they're selling.
No question. You hit the nail right on the head.
Okay, Brett, you agree with that as well, correct?
Well, I agree with that, and I would add also that some of Dan's skills in terms of measuring what is going on in a bar or restaurant is really important. If you can track sales and measure what's going on, you can pinpoint mistakes really early on and see where there might be some loss or some other adjustments that need to be made.
Yeah,
and you don't know if you can't measure it.
Clearly eliminating the losses will improve the profits.
Okay, that's absolutely for sure. Well, we are going to move to a commercial break in just a moment. Before we do that, we want to make sure we thank some of today's sponsors, which include GeorgiaRestaurantLaw.com. Schedule a free in-house consultation with a Georgia restaurant attorney and receive access to dozens of flat-fee legal services you need for your food and service business, corporations, LLCs, contracts, federal, state, and local licensings at upfront flat fees with real Georgia attorneys. We Sell Restaurants, and the restaurant brokerage firm led by Robin and Eric Gagnon is the largest restaurant brokerage company in the nation based on number of listings, transactions, and volume. We have more information on the beverage programs with our two guests after we return from this quick commercial break.